Mordecai and Rigby's latest attempt to slack off at work leads them to a hidden, sealed-off section of the park, where they uncover a horrifying secret about the true nature of their reality and the price of their endless pursuit of easy entertainment. It was a typical day at the park, which meant Mordecai and Rigby were doing everything they could to avoid working. Benson was on their case, as usual, threatening to fire them if they didn't finish raking the leaves that blanketed the park's central lawn. "Dude," Rigby whined, leaning on his rake like a crutch. "This is so boring. There has to be a better way to slack off." Mordecai, ever the slightly more responsible one, sighed. "We have to do this, Rigby. You know Benson's serious this time." "But what if," Rigby's eyes lit up with a mischievous glint, "we found somewhere else to slack off? Somewhere Benson wouldn't find us." Mordecai was intrigued. "Like where?" Rigby pointed towards a Dorna Kun, far corner of the park, a section they rarely visited, overgrown with thick bushes and shrouded in shadow. "There. I heard Pops talking about an old storage shed back there. Said it hasn't been used in years." Despite a nagging feeling of unease, Mordecai agreed. Anything was better than raking leaves. The shed was even creepier than they had imagined. It was a dilapidated wooden structure, half hidden by overgrown vines and shrouded in an unnatural gloom. The air around it felt heavy, oppressive, and the usual cheerful sounds of the park seemed to be muffled, replaced by an unsettling silence. The door was sealed shut with a heavy padlock, but Rigby, in his infinite wisdom, decided to break it open with a rusty pipe he found lying nearby. With a loud crack, the padlock broke, and the door creaked open, releasing a gust of stale, musty air that smelled faintly of decay. Inside, the shed was filled with cobwebs and dust. Strange, unidentifiable objects lay scattered on the floor, covered in Molin Chador, dirty sheets. In the center of the room, a single, bare light bulb flickered erratically, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. "Dude, this place is creepy," Mordecai whispered, his voice barely audible above the pounding of his heart. "Relax," Rigby said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "It's just an old shed, perfect place to hide from Benson." As they explored the shed, they discovered a trapdoor hidden beneath a tattered rug. It was old, wooden, and looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. An unnatural chill emanated from the darkness below. Against Mordecai's better judgment, Rigby insisted they go down. He argued it could be filled with forgotten treasures, or at least something more interesting than an empty shed. Armed with only the flashlight on Mordecai's phone, they descended into the darkness. The ladder led down into a long, narrow tunnel. The air was cold and damp, and the walls were covered in a strange, pulsating moss that glowed with a faint, sickly green light. The silence here was absolute, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of unseen water. As they walked, the tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, the darkness pressing in on them like a physical weight. Mordecai felt a growing sense of dread, a feeling that they were not alone. Then they heard it. A low, guttural growl that echoed through the tunnel, followed by a series of clicks and pops like bones shifting and cracking. "What was that?" Mordecai whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Rigby replied, his bravado completely gone. "But I don't like it." They continued to walk, their pace quickening. The growls grew louder, closer, and the clicking sounds became more frequent, more frantic. They could feel something moving in the darkness, something large and heavy, something hungry. Suddenly, the tunnel began to glitch. The walls flickered, the phosphorescent moss pulsed erratically, and the air shimmered as if reality itself was breaking down. Mordecai and Rigby stumbled, their bodies convulsing as the glitches intensified. They saw things, flashes of images that made no sense, a distorted version of the park, filled with monstrous, shadowy figures, a sky filled with swirling, multicolored static, and a single, all-seeing eye that seemed to stare directly into their souls. Then, as quickly as it began, the glitching stopped. They were back in the tunnel, the growls and clicks now deafeningly loud. And in the flickering light of Mordecai's phone, they saw it. It was a creature unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was tall and gaunt, its limbs elongated and twisted, its skin a patchwork of decaying flesh and exposed bone. Its head was a skull, a deer skull but with too many teeth, and antlers that branched and twisted into impossible shapes. And its eyes glowed with the same sickly green light as the moss on the walls. It was a horrifying fusion of the natural and the digital, a creature born from a corrupted reality. The creature lunged, its movements jerky and unnatural, its jaw unhinging with a sickening crack, revealing rows upon rows of razor-sharp teeth. Mordecai and Rigby ran. They ran for their lives, the creature's screeches and the echoes of their own panicked breaths filling the tunnel. They scrambled up the ladder, back into the shed, and slammed the trapdoor shut. They didn't stop running until they were back in the heart of the park, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds of their everyday lives. But something had changed. The park, once a place of fun and laughter, now felt alien and threatening. The colors seemed too bright, the sounds too loud, the smiles of the other park workers too wide. Benson found them, exhausted and terrified, huddled near the snack bar. He yelled at them, of course, for slacking off and disappearing. But they couldn't bring themselves to tell him what they had seen, what they had experienced. They knew he wouldn't believe them. No one would. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of the creature in the tunnel began to fade, like a bad dream. But the glitches continued. They would see things out of the corner of their eye, hear whispers in the silence, and feel a constant gnawing sense of unease. They tried to ignore it, to go back to their normal lives, to their regular slacking. But it was no use. They were trapped in a loop, repeating the same day over and over again, the same mundane tasks, the same forced smiles, the same hollow laughter. The park, once a place of escape, had become their prison, and they knew with a chilling certainty that they would never truly escape. The creature, the glitch, the thing from the shed was still out there, somewhere, waiting, watching. And the doorknob in the shed, they knew, led somewhere far worse than just another room. It led to a reality they were now a part of, a reality they helped create. Another day at the park, another shift. Forever? Because in this reality, the clock never punches out. The game never ends. And the worst part is, we chose to play. We chose this.